In this video tutorial, I will explain AwareIM queries which display results using the custom format of data representation, or custom queries. Most of AwareIM queries display data using the so-called standard format of data representation. In this format, the data is displayed using the grid widget. Every record is represented by a row in the grid, and each row displays certain columns. Let me quickly show you some grids in the CRM sample application. Here I am inside the CRM sample application. We can see a list of customers represented as a grid with rows and columns. Every customer record is represented with a row, and inside the row we see different columns. For more details about standard queries, please watch the queries tutorial. Sometimes, however, you may need to display your data differently. For example, you may want to display an album of photographs, which is laid out in a horizontal fashion. There are no columns, and each record is not represented by its own row. Let me quickly show you such a layout in the photo album sample application. Here I'm using the photo album application, and we can see the album of photographs. Each record is represented by a square here that contains the image of the photograph and some description. To implement such a layout in AwareIM, the developer needs to use custom queries. In a custom query, you define an HTML snippet that AwareIM will use when displaying each record. The same snippet will be used for every data record retrieved by the query. Let's create a simple custom query for the CRM sample application. Let's show a photograph of the customer with the first and last names next to the photo. So let's create a new query. Give it a name, and the query will be looking for all instances of the customer object. Let's now select the Display As property and choose the Custom Radio button. In this area here, we need to provide the HTML snippet that AwareIM will use to display each record. We can choose here from the list of predefined templates. For example, I can choose thumbnail or picture in text, subject and description, and so on. If you frequently use some templates, you can define your own, and they will appear in this drop-down. Let's pick the picture in text template. Obviously, in order to use custom queries effectively, you need to understand a bit of HTML and CSS. It is important to understand also that this snippet is used for each record. A record represents an instance of a business object that the query retrieves, customer in this case. We can refer to the attributes of this object in this snippet. Note, though, that the syntax that you use when referring to data is different in custom queries compared to everywhere else. In custom queries, you refer to attributes without using the object and enclosing the attributes in curly brackets rather than angular brackets. Here, for example, we refer to the photo attribute of the custom object. And here we use first name and last name. Let's just change the address attribute to the date of birth attribute and see how this works. Let's just add this query to the menu of the application. Okay, now we're ready to put this version under test and see how it works in the browser. So I log into the application and I run the query. I can now see the list of customers, and for every customer I can see the photograph of the customer, first name, last name, and the date of birth. Note that here the snippet makes sure that every record is displayed in its own row, but it's easy to change it to display a horizontal layout if need be. Let's do this. In order to do this, we need to change the HTML snippet. The key thing we need to change here is the display style of the parent element. We need to set this style to inline block. We will also remove the line underneath the element. Fix its width and add some margin between the elements. Let's see how this looks now. So now, when we log in again and run our query, we can see the horizontal layout. Let's see now which other properties we can change when displaying custom queries. Using the display settings property, we can control width and height of the query, display of the paging bar, and so on. We can display panel operations at the top or bottom of the query. And we can also define operations with records. Unlike standard queries, these operations become available to the users when they click on the item representing the record with the right mouse button. If we go back to the display as property, we can see that here we can also choose the mobile template. The difference is that the standard template and the mobile template are implemented by different widgets, and different options are available for both templates in the display settings property. The mobile template does not support paging bars, it does not support a horizontal layout, but it supports infinite scrolling and automatic grouping. It also supports checkbox selection of panel operations applicable to multiple items. As such, it is most useful for mobile applications, and that is why it is called mobile template. But it can also be used in the desktop applications. Let me show you an example of a mobile template in the CRM application. If we go to the Customer All Mobile query, we can see that it is implemented as custom mobile template. And if we look at the display settings property, we can see that it supports grouping, among other things. Let me show you how it looks on the phone. So here we have a list of customers displayed using the mobile template. We can see grouping A, B, and C. We can see checkbox selection. And the mobile template supports item operations as a mobile menu, which is activated like that. An interesting detail about custom queries is that you can add custom JavaScript to your HTML snippets. For example, you may want to add some JavaScript to conditionally display different elements, depending on the value of attributes. Once again, the syntax of conditional expressions in custom queries is different from conditional expressions used in HTML cells of a form or in document templates. I will demonstrate this to you in a minute. So let me show you some real-world custom queries that demonstrate all their powerful capabilities. I'm going to log into the RenFab application. A reference to this application is available from the sample applications page on the Where I Am website. This is a real application that manages laser and sheet metal business. It has a lot of functionality: manufacturing, inventory, quotation, production, and so on. There is also a CRM part, which manages customers and communication with customers. This is what I will show you. When we select communication from the menu here, we're presented with a list of customers on the left. When we select a particular customer, a list of its communication records is shown on the right. There are two queries here: the one that shows customers on the left and the one that shows a list of communications on the right. Both queries are custom queries. Moreover, they display the information conditionally. For example, this icon here depends on the type of communication. If it is a phone call, it shows a phone icon. But if it is an email, like here, it shows an envelope. When we hover the mouse over this icon here, we can see a little menu of operations. When we click on the icon, an operation is run and we can create a new communication with the customer. All of this has been implemented using a relatively simple HTML and CSS. Let's have a look. This is the query that shows a list of communication records for a particular customer. And this is the HTML snippet that it uses for each record. Note the conditional statements here. They use JavaScript. Each JavaScript line must be enclosed in hashtag symbols. When referring to data in JavaScript, use the data array and specify the name of the attribute in square brackets. Here you can see all the conditions to display a particular icon depending on the communication type. Other than that, it's a normal HTML snippet that refers to data using curly brackets. Most of the magic happens in CSS classes here. And this is the custom query that shows the list of customers and an HTML snippet for each record. Again, we can see some JavaScript here and references to CSS classes and references to attributes. You see that if you are familiar with HTML and CSS, you can achieve really powerful things with custom queries.